The sun rose slowly over the hills, painting the sky with shades of gold and soft pink. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and blooming flowers across the small farm that sat alone at the edge of the forest. The farm seemed ordinary at first glance. A wooden house with smoke curling from its chimney, neatly lined vegetable patches, chickens pecking at the dirt, and a few cows grazing lazily. But anyone who thought this farm was ordinary would be very wrong. Inside the farmhouse, Leora moved quietly across the wooden floor, her bare feet making soft thuds. She was just 16, with hair the color of sunlight and eyes that seemed to shine with a spark of mischief. She wore simple clothes, a worn brown tunic and sturdy boots, perfect for working on the farm. But Leora was not just a farmer's daughter. She had a secret that no one outside her family and her dragons knew. Dragons. Not stories. Not myths, real dragons. She had grown up among them, learned to speak their language, and, most importantly, learned to lead them. Some were small, no bigger than a goat, with scales that shimmered like emeralds and rubies. Others were massive, with wings that could block the sunlight and roar loud enough to shake the ground. To an outsider, they would have looked like nothing more than shadows in the hills. But Leora knew every dragon by name, knew what it liked to eat, and knew how it thought. As she stepped outside to feed the chickens, she could hear faint whispers in her mind. Not her own thoughts, but voices of dragons. The wind is strange today. I smell metal. Leora's heart skipped a beat. Her dragons were sensing something unusual, something far beyond the ordinary life of the farm. She looked up at the sky and froze. Above the hills, strange shapes hovered. Sleek, silver ships glinted in the morning sun. They moved with precise, mechanical grace, unlike any bird or cloud. They were not from her world. They were aliens. Leora's hands went to her hips as she studied them. She had heard of alien species before, of course. Travelers from far-off galaxies. Curious, sometimes dangerous, sometimes indifferent to humans. But she had never seen them before. And something about the way these ships hovered, it felt threatening. The dragons in the hills behind the farmhouse stirred. Leora closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Caldera? Ember? Thorn? A chorus of responses echoed softly, like the sound of wind rustling through leaves. She took a deep breath. She had always known this day might come. Humans were not the only species in this part of the galaxy, and sometimes, those who were different came looking for conquest, for resources, for reasons no human could understand. The first alien drone descended. It was small, shaped like a silver crescent, with lights that blinked in a rhythm too perfect to be natural. It scanned the farm, its sensors sweeping over the fields and the house. Leora held her breath as she watched it move. She could see the tiny energy pulses scanning for life, for heat, for signs of intelligence. To these aliens, she and her dragons would look like an ordinary human settlement. But the drones had no idea how wrong they were. Leora walked calmly toward the barn, the dragons' voices guiding her. She opened the large wooden doors, revealing a cavern hidden beneath the farm. A cool wind blew up from the underground, carrying the scent of stone and fire. Dragons of all sizes stirred within, their eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "Mistress," said Caldera, the largest dragon, its scales black as night with streaks of silver. "They are scanning. What should we do?" Leora ran her hand over Caldera's massive snout. "We wait. We watch. Let them make the first move." Even though she spoke calmly, her mind raced. She knew that the aliens would not be patient. Their kind never was. They would assume humans were weak, defenseless, unworthy of attention. And that assumption could cost them dearly. The drones moved closer, hovering over the farm with a low hum that made the ground vibrate. Leora's smaller dragons, hidden in the trees, unfurled their wings quietly, perching on branches, invisible among the leaves. They waited, muscles tensed, eyes bright. Suddenly, a beam of light swept over the field, scanning the crops. The cows mooed nervously. The chickens scattered, and Leora stepped forward, holding her staff high. The staff was nothing ordinary. Its wood was dark and polished, engraved with ancient runes that glowed faintly in the sunlight. To any human, it would look like a simple tool, but to the dragons, it was a signal. "Now," she whispered. From the hills, dragons erupted like a storm. Flames lit the sky, reflecting off the metal of the alien ships. Screeches and roars echoed across the farm. The aliens had expected no resistance. But now they faced creatures of fire, wings, and teeth. Small dragons darted between the drones, knocking them off balance. Larger dragons took to the sky, circling the ships, breathing fire that made the metal hulls hiss and warp. Leora's heart raced, but she stayed calm. This was what she had trained for, what she had prepared for all her life. She could feel the dragon's fear and excitement mingling with her own. "Focus," she thought, sending a wave of calm over them. "Hit hard, strike together." The aliens fired back. Beams of energy shot through the air, cutting into the ground, scorching the trees. But the dragons were faster, moving with intelligence and strategy that no machine could match. Caldera lunged, knocking a drone from the sky with a swipe of its tail. Ember, small and quick, flew under a ship, biting at a mechanical joint until sparks flew. Leora watched, amazed and proud. She had always known humans had potential, had always believed that humans could adapt, could fight in ways others could not imagine. But even she had not imagined this. Her dragons were her family, her allies, and now they were the first line of defense against an enemy that thought humans were weak. The ground shook as one of the alien ships landed, larger than the drones, with armored legs that dug into the soil. From it emerged creatures taller than any human, their bodies sleek and metallic, faces hidden behind reflective helmets. They carried weapons that glowed with energy, their movements precise, calculated. Leora stepped forward, staff in hand, and spoke aloud, though the aliens could not understand her words. "You have come to our home uninvited. You will not leave without learning respect." The dragons roared in agreement, a deafening sound that made the alien soldiers hesitate. They had expected humans to cower, to flee, to beg for mercy. Instead, they were met with fire-breathing dragons, intelligent commands, and a human girl who stood fearlessly in the middle of the farm, guiding the chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The sun gleamed off the dragon's scales, the wind carried the scent of fire, and the aliens realized something important. Humans were not weak. Humans were dangerous. Leora's mind raced. She had to protect her farm, her dragons, and everything she loved. She also had to teach these invaders a lesson they would never forget. She could not allow them to underestimate her species. Not today. Not ever. As the first battle began, the farm that looked so quiet and peaceful just minutes ago became a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Flames and smoke mingled with the scent of grass and earth. Dragons swooped through the sky with precision. Leora directed them with a mix of voice, gesture, and thought. The aliens fired their weapons, but each strike was met with strategy, speed, and the sheer unpredictability of creatures who thought and felt in ways machines never could. And in the center of it all stood Leora. Small but fearless, human but extraordinary, the guardian of a secret that the universe was not ready to face. The morning sun had climbed higher, painting the sky with bright orange and blue. Smoke from the first clash still lingered over the fields, curling and twisting like silver ribbons in the wind. Leora stood on a small rise near the farmhouse, her staff held firmly in both hands. Her dragons were circling above, wings spread wide, scales shimmering in the sunlight. The aliens were not backing down. The larger ship that had landed earlier now opened its hatch, revealing strange, metallic figures stepping onto the soft earth. They were taller than any human, with sleek, armored bodies and glowing eyes that scanned every detail. Their weapons pulsed with energy, crackling in a rhythm that sent a shiver through the grass. They moved like a single organism, perfectly coordinated, without hesitation. Leora took a deep breath. She had to think fast. The first wave of drones had already been destroyed, but she knew more would come. Her dragons were strong, but even dragons had limits. Humans were clever, she reminded herself. Together, she and her dragons could win, but only if they stayed smart and calm. Caldera, Ember, Thorn, she whispered, sending her thoughts out to the dragons. Stay high, watch the flanks, don't let them surround us. A low rumble answered her from the hill behind, the ground trembling as the massive caldera landed lightly, muscles coiled and ready. Ember, the smallest and fastest, darted between the trees, her wings beating like a hummingbird. Thorn, the green-scaled dragon with spiked wings, hissed softly, smoke curling from his nostrils. The aliens began moving across the farm. Their steps were silent for such large machines, but their energy weapons made the air buzz. They scanned the fields, clearly expecting resistance, but probably only from humans. Not from the creatures now ready to strike from every angle. Leora took a step forward, her staff glowing faintly in the sunlight. She wanted the aliens to see her, to understand that humans were not just hiding. The moment they registered her, the dragons launched their attack. The sky exploded with motion. Dragons dived from the hills and trees, wings cutting through the air like blades. Fire licked across the metal hulls of the alien machines. Embers zipped between legs and energy beams, biting and clawing, tiny but fast and precise. Thorn lashed his tail, sending smaller drones tumbling into fields of crops. And Caldera, massive and terrifying, roared, a sound that shook the ground and made the aliens pause. The aliens fired back. Beams of blue energy shot toward the dragons, hitting the ground and making smoke hiss and curl. Leora ducked as a blast narrowly missed her, her heart pounding, but she stayed focused. She had trained for moments like this, not just for herself, but for the dragons. She knew each one's strengths, their weaknesses, and their instincts. She could guide them through this chaos. Scatter, hit from all sides, she commanded, her voice carrying across the farm. She didn't just speak aloud. Her thoughts flowed toward the dragons, guiding their movements with a precision no human soldier could achieve. The aliens were taken off guard. They had not expected creatures like this. Machines were designed to fight other machines, to calculate angles, to anticipate actions with perfect logic. But dragons were not machines. They were living, thinking, breathing creatures. They changed tactics in real time, reacting, attacking, retreating, and striking again. One of the smaller drones zipped toward the farmhouse, its weapons ready to fire. Leora focused on it, calling to Ember. The small dragon zipped through the air, circling the drone before smashing it with her claws. Sparks flew, metal bent, and the drone tumbled into a tree, unable to rise again. Good, Leora whispered. Keep moving. Don't stop. The aliens regrouped. More drones appeared from the larger ship, faster and more advanced than the first. But Leora had already planned for this. She pointed toward the hill on the edge of the farm, where a hidden path led into a narrow canyon. Lead them there, she instructed Caldera. The giant dragon spread his wings, taking flight with a power that made the ground tremble. The aliens followed, thinking they had an advantage, but they were walking into a trap. From the canyon, Smaller dragons appeared, darting between rocks and trees, attacking the aliens from all directions. The narrow space worked against the machines. They could not maneuver easily. Sparks flew as metal scraped against stone. Alien beams hit rocks instead of dragons. And Leora's strategy worked perfectly. She watched carefully. Her mind was calm, even as her heart raced. Every movement, every decision, had to be perfect. One mistake, and her dragons could be hurt. But the aliens underestimated humans. They assumed humans were weak. That assumption had cost them their first wave, and it would cost them more. From above, Caldera swooped down with a loud roar, landing on one of the alien machines and smashing it with his massive claws. Ember followed, darting in and out, biting joints and sensors. Thorn swung his tail, knocking another drone into a shallow pond, where it sizzled and steamed. Leora directed every move, each dragon responding instantly to her commands. Then the larger alien ship began to open more hatches. From inside emerged the alien soldiers themselves. They were taller, stronger, and more armored than the drones. Each carried energy weapons that glowed like lightning in their hands. They marched forward, moving in perfect formation. Leora knew they were dangerous. Machines could be destroyed by fire or force, but these aliens were living beings, or at least close enough to it. But she also knew that humans had something machines and aliens often underestimated: creativity, courage, and the ability to work together. She ran along the edge of the field, signaling with her staff. The dragons responded immediately, circling and diving with coordinated precision. One by one, they struck, forcing the aliens to break formation. Fire met energy beams, claws met armor, and the ground shook with the force of the battle. The aliens paused briefly, stunned. They had expected humans to hide, to run, to beg for mercy. Instead, they faced a young girl directing dragons with intelligence and courage that machines could not match. They began to retreat, regrouping, their formations broken, their confidence shaken, but Leora did not let them rest. She pushed forward, leading Caldera and Thorn into a coordinated strike. The two massive dragons smashed into the alien front line, forcing the soldiers backward. Ember darted overhead, dropping small fireballs onto the remaining drones. The aliens fired their weapons, but the dragons' agility and speed made them nearly impossible to hit. Leora guided them skillfully, making the dragons move in patterns the aliens could not predict. Sparks, fire, and smoke filled the farm, but Leora felt a thrill of pride. She had always known humans could do great things. Now she was showing the universe why. One alien soldier, larger than the rest and more armored, stepped forward, raising a massive weapon toward Leora. It fired a beam of energy that cut a trench across the field. Leora ducked and rolled, sending a signal to Caldera. The giant dragon lunged at the soldier, knocking it to the ground with a crash that shook the earth. Ember and Thorn attacked simultaneously, and the soldier's weapon was disabled before it could fire again. The battle continued for hours. Dragons swooped, humans moved. Aliens fired and regrouped. Leora never stopped directing, never stopped thinking, never stopped believing. She could feel the bond between her and the dragons growing stronger, their trust in her absolute. And slowly, the aliens began to realize that they were not facing ordinary humans. They were facing a species capable of great intelligence, courage, and ferocity when provoked. By midday, the first wave of the aliens was defeated. Their drones lay scattered across the fields, smoking and broken. Their soldiers retreated to the larger ship, injured and confused. Leora knew this was only the beginning. More would come, and they would be stronger. But she also knew something else. Humans and dragons, working together, could defend their home against anything. She stood on the rise near the farmhouse, breathing heavily but proud. Caldera landed beside her, smoke curling from his nostrils, and Ember perched on her shoulder, wings folded carefully. Thorn nuzzled her hand, and all three dragons looked at her with loyalty and trust. Leora smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The farm had been quiet and peaceful this morning, but now it had proven its power. Humans were not weak. Dragons were not toys. And together, they were a force the universe would have to respect. She looked toward the horizon, where the larger alien ship still hovered. The battle had been won. But the war was not over. Leora knew that the aliens would return, stronger and more prepared. But she also knew that when humans and dragons fought together, they were unstoppable. The farm, once ordinary, had become a battlefield and a symbol that humans, small and seemingly weak, could rise against any threat. That courage, strategy, and unity could defeat machines and alien soldiers alike. Leora turned back to her dragons. "Rest for now," she said. "We've earned it. But soon, we'll need to be ready again. They will come." The dragons roared softly in agreement, curling their wings and settling in the grass. Leora looked at her farm, at the land she loved, and felt a deep sense of pride. The invasion had begun, and humans, with dragons at their side, were ready to defend it. The quiet farm had changed forever. And the universe had just learned a very important lesson: never underestimate humans. The farm had returned to an uneasy calm. Smoke still drifted lazily from the scorched fields, and the dragons rested in shaded clearings, wings folded and eyes alert. Leora walked among them, her staff lightly tapping the ground, listening to their soft murmurs. They had won the first wave, but she knew better than to celebrate too soon. The aliens were clever, organized, and relentless. Above the hills, the sky shimmered with movement. The larger alien ship, that had hovered nearby, began to rise, slowly, deliberately. From it, smaller, sleeker crafts detached, like silver drops of rain. The aliens had not given up. They were returning stronger, bringing new weapons and new strategies. Leora's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. Fear would only weaken her control over the dragons. She climbed a small rise, scanning the horizon. "They're coming back," she whispered. Her voice was quiet but firm, and the dragons around her felt the tension. Caldera's scales shimmered darker, a warning, while Ember twitched her wings nervously. Thorn lowered his head, nostrils flaring, sensing the approaching threat. Leora's mind raced. She had anticipated this. Humans were not naturally the strongest, but they had ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. That was what had made them dangerous. And she intended to use it. The alien crafts landed across the fields, forming a new line of attack. This time, their approach was more cautious. They deployed drones in a circular formation around the ship, their glowing sensors scanning every corner. Soldiers emerged, heavier armored than before, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Leora could see the precision in their movements, the way they had learned from their earlier mistakes. But humans had their own advantage: unpredictability. "Everyone, listen," Leora said, raising her staff. Her voice carried across the field, though only the dragons could fully understand her command. "They've learned from the first attack. We must adapt. Use the trees, the rocks, the hills. Force them to chase us. Don't let them control the battlefield. Strike smart." The dragons responded instantly. Ember zipped between trees, creating confusion and forcing the drones to split their focus. Thorn slithered among the rocks, ready to spring from hidden angles. Caldera's massive wings stretched wide, ready to drive fear into the alien soldiers. Together, they formed a living network of movement, communication, and intelligence, something machines could not anticipate. The aliens advanced. Their weapons glowed, firing beams of blue energy that carved the earth and cracked tree trunks. Leora ducked instinctively, sending a mental command to the dragons. They shifted positions immediately, diving, rolling, and striking from new angles. Ember attacked from above, dropping fireballs that scorched the ground around the soldiers. Thorn swept low, catching smaller drones with his tail. Caldera landed hard, shaking the ground, smashing another drone with a swipe of his claws. The aliens paused, clearly astonished. They had expected humans to hide behind makeshift barriers or surrender. Instead, they faced a coordinated, living army. Led by a girl who moved with strategy and courage far beyond their calculations. One of the alien soldiers raised his arm, signaling a retreat, but the order was too late. Leora was already several steps ahead. She sprinted toward a narrow canyon at the edge of the farm. "Follow me!" she shouted, and the dragons obeyed. Ember zipped ahead, drawing some of the drones after her. Thorn and Caldera blocked the main path, forcing the aliens into the canyon. Leora's plan was simple, but effective. The canyon was narrow, full of hidden rocks and sudden drops. The aliens' precision weapons were useless here. Speed and agility mattered more. As the aliens moved into the canyon, Leora directed her dragons with expert precision. Ember dove down, her claws slicing through a drone's hull. Thorn's tail swept across the path, sending smaller machines tumbling into the river below. Caldera roared and leaped onto a boulder, knocking two soldiers off their feet. Every move was calculated, every strike coordinated. The aliens, though technologically advanced, were struggling to adapt to the chaos. One of the alien commanders, taller and more imposing than the rest, stepped forward. His armor gleamed under the sunlight, and he carried a massive weapon that crackled with energy. He paused at the canyon's entrance, scanning the battlefield. Leora met his gaze without fear, standing on a rock, staff glowing faintly. "You think humans are weak," she whispered, not to him but to the wind, letting her dragons hear her resolve. "But you will learn today that we are not. We are more than you imagined." The aliens fired their weapons, beams slicing through the air toward the dragons. Ember darted through the energy streams with lightning speed, while Thorn used the shadows of the rocks to avoid the blasts. Caldera roared and leaped, scattering a group of soldiers and sending one crashing into the canyon wall. Leora moved swiftly, her staff glowing brighter with each command, guiding her dragons like a conductor with a symphony of fire, claws, and wings. But the aliens had not come unprepared. They unleashed a new weapon. A massive drone, larger and faster than the ones before, with spinning blades and an energy shield. It moved with precision, targeting dragons with deadly accuracy. Leora's heart skipped a beat, but she did not hesitate. "Flank it," she shouted. Caldera and Thorn moved to surround the drone, forcing it to defend on all sides. Ember dived from above, distracting its sensors with rapid movements. Leora focused her mind, sending precise commands. The dragons attacked in perfect sequence, striking weak points she had learned through observation. Sparks flew, metal twisted, and the drone finally crashed into a cliff, exploding in a cloud of smoke and fire. The alien soldiers froze, shocked at what they had just witnessed. Humans, they realized, were not ordinary prey. They could think, adapt, and lead creatures of unimaginable power. Their strategies were clever, creative, and utterly unpredictable. One of the smaller drones tried to flee, but Ember caught it mid-air, biting through its hull. Thorn swept through the canyon, clearing the remaining machines. Caldera roared in triumph, shaking the canyon walls. Leora felt a surge of pride. Her dragons had fought brilliantly, and the humans on the farm had proven their value. But the aliens were not defeated yet. The larger ship hovered at the canyon entrance, its engines glowing like molten metal. More soldiers began to emerge, preparing for another wave. Leora knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would come again, stronger, and smarter, learning from each battle. She took a deep breath and looked at her dragons. "We've held them off for now," she said. "But we must be ready. They will return." Ember perched on her shoulder, her small wings fluttering. Thorn nudged her hand, and Caldera lowered his massive head in agreement. The dragons were exhausted, but ready to follow her lead. Leora felt the bond between them stronger than ever. Together, they could face anything. As the aliens regrouped, Leora surveyed the battlefield. The farm had been damaged, some crops destroyed, trees scorched, and the earth torn. But the land was not lost. Humans had survived worse, and dragons had endured longer. Together, they were unstoppable. The alien commander on the ship studied the farm from above, his glowing eyes narrowing. He had underestimated humans. He had assumed they were weak, unorganized, and defenseless. Instead, he had faced a young girl leading dragons, outsmarting machines, and defending her home with intelligence and courage. He would report back to his fleet, warning them. Humans were not to be underestimated. But Leora knew that warning was too late. The bond between humans and dragons was something aliens could not comprehend, a force beyond calculation. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the fields as Leora and her dragons regrouped. She walked among them, checking for injuries and giving gentle words of encouragement. The battle had been hard, exhausting, and terrifying, but it had also shown the true strength of humans. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of courage that no alien machine could predict. As she looked at the horizon, she knew the aliens would return. But she also knew something else. Humans, alongside dragons, were ready for anything. The farm, once quiet and peaceful, had become a fortress, a symbol of human ingenuity and bravery. "We will not be defeated," she whispered to the wind. "We will protect our home, no matter what comes." The dragons roared softly, a sound of agreement and loyalty. Leora smiled, feeling their strength, their trust, and their determination. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. And somewhere in the sky, the alien ships hovered, calculating, planning, astonished at what they had encountered. They had underestimated humans, and that mistake would cost them more than they could imagine. For Leora and her dragons, the fight was only beginning, and the universe would soon learn that humans, small but clever, fearless, and united with creatures of fire and wings, were a force to be reckoned with. The quiet farm had changed forever, and Leora knew that every day, every battle, would prove the same lesson. Never underestimate humans. The farm was quiet again, but the calm was deceptive. Leora walked along the edge of the fields, her staff tapping rhythmically against the ground. Her dragons followed, their scales glinting in the late afternoon sun. Caldera's wings were partially folded, but his eyes scanned the horizon. Ember flitted ahead, restless, while Thorn moved slowly, muscles coiled like springs, ready to strike. Leora knew the peace would not last. The first two waves had been tests. The aliens were learning, adapting, and preparing for something bigger. She had felt it in the way the larger ship hovered above, its engines glowing like molten metal. Silent and menacing. They were not done, they would come back stronger. She climbed the hill near the barn, gazing out across the fields and hills. Her mind raced, calculating possibilities, strategies, and contingencies. The aliens had advanced weapons, faster drones, and precise coordination. But humans had something the aliens could not calculate: creativity, adaptability, and the bond with dragons that was unbreakable. The wind carried a faint hum, a sound of engines that vibrated through the earth. Leora stiffened. The larger ship had descended slowly, landing at the far edge of the farm, its metallic legs sinking into the soil. From it, dozens of drones and alien soldiers emerged, moving with careful precision. Their weapons glowed brighter than before, energy pulsing along the barrels like lightning. Leora turned to the dragons. "This is it," she said, her voice calm but firm. "They are coming for us. We must show them that humans do not surrender. Not now. Not ever." The dragons responded with a low rumble, a sound that shook the ground. Caldera's roar echoed across the farm, and Ember flapped her wings in excitement. Thorn hissed softly, smoke curling from his nostrils. Together, they formed a living army, ready to defend their home. The aliens advanced in formation, expecting to intimidate the humans. But Leora had a plan. She had studied the terrain, memorized every hill, every tree, every hidden path. Humans had used ingenuity to survive for generations, and now that same ingenuity would turn the farm into a fortress. "Divide and confuse them," she whispered to the dragons. "Use the hills, the woods, and the river. Make them chase us. Make them vulnerable." Caldera lifted into the air, carrying the largest dragons into the sky. Ember zipped between the trees, her speed unmatched, while Thorn slithered among rocks and shrubs, ready to ambush. Leora ran toward a narrow canyon at the edge of the property. The perfect place for a trap. The aliens moved cautiously, their drones scanning for life, their soldiers alert. They had learned from previous waves, but they still underestimated humans. They did not understand the bond between Leora and her dragons. They did not expect strategy mixed with instinct, creativity with fire. As the aliens entered the canyon, Leora's trap was ready. Hidden rocks and sudden cliffs created a natural maze, forcing the soldiers to slow down and the drones to maneuver awkwardly. Ember dove from above, drawing attention, while Thorn and Caldera struck from unexpected angles. Sparks flew, beams met claws and tails, and the aliens found themselves caught in a battlefield they could not control. The alien commander, taller and more imposing than the others, stepped forward, his weapon glowing intensely. Leora faced him calmly, standing on a rock with her staff raised. She had expected this moment, the confrontation with their leader. "You think humans are weak," she whispered, not to him but to the wind, letting her dragons feel her confidence. "But today, you will learn that we are strong, clever, and unafraid." The commander fired a massive beam of energy, carving a trench through the canyon floor. Leora ducked, rolling to the side, her staff guiding the dragons. Caldera leaped, smashing into the soldiers, while Ember darted overhead, dropping fire and striking with claws. Thorn swept low, taking out drones that tried to flank them. The aliens were astonished. They had expected humans to fight timidly, to hide, to retreat. Instead, they faced a young girl commanding dragons with precision, intelligence, and courage that no machine could match. Every strike was coordinated, every movement deliberate. The aliens could not predict where the next attack would come from. Leora ran along the canyon, directing the dragons. "Over here, Caldera. Strike from the left. Ember, distract them." Her commands flowed naturally, her bond with the dragons allowing instant communication. They moved as one, a single force of fire, wings, and claws. The alien commander realized they had miscalculated. Humans were not predictable. Machines could anticipate patterns, but humans did not follow patterns, they adapted. And dragons, intelligent and loyal, amplified that adaptability. The aliens tried a new tactic, deploying energy nets to trap the dragons. But Leora anticipated this. She directed Caldera to break the net with a powerful swipe, while Thorn and Ember created diversions. The nets fell uselessly to the ground, tangled and ineffective. With a roar, Caldera leaped toward the alien commander, smashing into his weapon and sending sparks flying. Ember followed, circling rapidly, confusing the sensors. Thorn struck from below, knocking another drone off balance. Leora moved carefully, guiding each dragon's strike. The commander's confidence faltered as his formation broke apart. The battle raged for hours. The canyon shook with the force of dragons, energy beams, and explosions. Leora felt the sweat on her brow, the strain in her muscles. But she did not stop. She had trained for this moment, and her dragons trusted her completely. Finally, Leora saw an opening. The alien commander was exposed, trying to regroup his soldiers. She raised her staff, calling to the dragons. Now! Together! Caldera lunged from the sky, smashing into the commander's armor. Ember swooped in, striking his sensors and cutting his communications. Thorn swept the remaining drones aside, clearing the battlefield. The commander stumbled, overwhelmed by the coordinated attack. The aliens began to retreat, some fleeing into the larger ship, others scrambling to escape the canyon. Leora watched them go, her staff glowing faintly in the fading sunlight. Her dragons landed beside her, tired but triumphant. "This is only the beginning," she said softly, stroking Caldera's massive head. "They will come again, but we are ready. Always ready." The dragons roared in agreement, smoke curling from their nostrils. Ember nuzzled her shoulder, Thorn coiled protectively around her feet, and Caldera lifted his wings, ready for anything. Together, they had turned the tide, showing that humans were not just survivors, they were leaders, strategists, and warriors when needed. The farm had changed. Once peaceful and quiet, it was now a fortress, a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. The aliens had learned their lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. And Leora, with her dragons at her side, had proven that even the smallest, seemingly ordinary human could become a force that could challenge the strongest invaders. As the sun set, painting the sky with orange and purple, Leora looked over the battlefield. The earth was scarred, trees were broken, and smoke drifted across the fields. But humans and dragons remained. Together, they had faced the alien threat and had survived. Leora smiled, a small but confident smile. "We will not let them take our home," she whispered. "No matter how many waves come, we will stand together. Humans and dragons united, unstoppable, unbroken." The dragons roared softly, their sounds echoing across the hills. They had fought bravely, as had Leora. Together, they had turned the aliens' advance into a lesson. Humans were clever, adaptable, and fierce, and no force in the universe could easily defeat them. Above, the alien ships hovered, silent and calculating. They had underestimated humans, and that mistake would be remembered. The report they would send back would warn the galaxy. Humans were not weak. Humans, bonded with dragons, were a force to be reckoned with. And Leora, standing on the hill with her dragons around her, felt the weight of that truth. The aliens would return, stronger and smarter, but so would humans. They would fight, adapt, and protect their home. The quiet farm had transformed into a battlefield, a fortress, and a symbol. And Leora knew, deep in her heart, that humans, clever and brave, with dragons at their side, would never bow to any threat. The war was not over, but the turning point had come. The aliens had been shown the strength, courage, and ingenuity of humans. And Leora, with her dragons, was ready for whatever came next. For the first time, the aliens understood. Humans were not to be underestimated. The morning sun rose over the farm, casting a golden glow over the scorched fields and the still smoking canyon. Birds cautiously returned to the trees, and the wind carried the scent of charred earth and grass. Leora stood at the top of the hill, her staff in hand, her dragons circling above like vigilant guardians. Today, she knew, would decide everything. The aliens had returned. Their numbers were greater than before. From the horizon, Silver ships glinted in the sunlight, dropping into the valley with precision. Behind them, waves of drones and heavily armored soldiers marched, their weapons pulsing with deadly energy. This was not a test anymore, it was an all-out invasion. Leora's heart did not race with fear. It raced with determination. She had trained for this moment, and her dragons were ready. Caldera, massive and black with silver streaks, circled high above, his eyes scanning for danger. Ember, small but lightning fast, zipped through the air, scouting the incoming forces. Thorn, green-scaled and powerful, prowled the canyon below, ready to ambush. "Everyone, listen carefully," Leora said, her voice strong and clear. "They think they can overwhelm us. But they are wrong. They do not understand humans. They do not understand dragons. And they will learn today." The dragons responded with low roars, smoke curling from their nostrils. Leora felt the bond between them stronger than ever. Every movement, every attack, every instinct of the dragons was tuned to her commands. Together, they were unstoppable. The first wave of alien drones descended toward the farm. They moved in tight formation, firing energy beams at the fields. Leora didn't hesitate. She signaled Caldera, and the massive dragon dove from the sky, claws extended. He smashed into the first wave, scattering drones like leaves in a storm. Ember darted through the air, striking sensors and cameras, confusing their movements. Thorn swept along the ground, knocking smaller machines into the river. Sparks flew, metal twisted, and the aliens began to falter. But this was only the beginning. From the largest ship, the alien commander himself emerged, towering and heavily armored, his weapon glowing like molten light. He raised his hand, and more drones and soldiers surged forward, determined to overwhelm the humans and dragons. Leora ran along the hill, her staff glowing faintly. "Caldera, up and strike from above. Ember, flank them. Thorn, the ground is yours. Strike hard." The dragons obeyed instantly. Caldera swooped from the sky with tremendous force, slamming into the aliens' ranks. Ember zipped between drones, her speed unmatched, while Thorn struck from behind, sending smaller machines flying. Leora guided every movement with precision, orchestrating the dragon's attacks like a master conductor, leading a symphony of fire, claws, and wings. The aliens were astonished. They had expected humans to cower or flee. Instead, they faced strategy, courage, and coordination beyond their calculations. The young girl standing on the hill, staff raised, was not just a human, she was a commander, a strategist, and a force that could lead dragons against armies. The alien commander fired his massive weapon, energy tearing through the air toward the dragons. Caldera leaped aside, claws striking drones in midair. Ember darted under the beam, slicing through smaller drones. Thorn used the shadows and rocks to evade, striking soldiers when they least expected it. Leora guided them all, her mind working faster than any machine could anticipate. Then, she saw the perfect opening. The alien commander had overextended, focused entirely on the largest dragons. Leora raised her staff and called to Ember. The small dragon zipped above, dropping a small fireball that landed precisely on the commander's energy shield, causing a chain reaction. Sparks flew, metal hissed, and the shield faltered. Caldera lunged, striking the commander with tremendous force. Thorn followed, sweeping drones aside, while Ember circled to confuse the rest of the soldiers. The alien commander staggered, unprepared for the combined assault. Leora's voice rang clear. "Now, together. Strike as one." The dragons moved as a single unit. Flames, claws, and tails struck simultaneously. The commander fell, stunned and defeated, as the drones around him crashed into each other or tumbled into the river. The alien forces broke formation, chaos spreading through their ranks. From above, The remaining alien ships tried to intervene, but Leora had prepared for this. She signaled Caldera to take flight. Swooping toward the hovering ships, Thorn and Ember moved strategically, creating confusion and forcing the ships to maneuver awkwardly. Leora herself ran along the battlefield, staff glowing, guiding her dragons with precision. Humans from neighboring farms, who had long hidden their dragons and trained beasts, now joined the battle. Griffins, giant wolves, and other creatures swooped and charged alongside Leora's dragons. Together, the humans and dragons created an unstoppable force. The aliens were overwhelmed, their advanced weapons useless against the combined intelligence, creativity, and courage of the humans. The alien commander's last attempt was desperate. He fired a massive energy beam from the largest ship, aiming directly at Leora and her dragons. The beam tore across the earth, splitting trees and scorching the grass. Leora didn't flinch. She signaled the dragons with a calm authority. Caldera dived, breaking the beam with a powerful strike of his claws. Ember darted to the side, redirecting the energy toward the ground, where it harmlessly hit rocks. Thorn swept low, knocking drones aside to protect the humans. Leora herself ran, staff glowing brighter than ever, her mind and body fully focused. The alien forces could not recover. Their machines were destroyed, their soldiers scattered, and their commander had been neutralized. With one final roar from Caldera, the largest alien ship shuddered and lifted off, retreating with the remaining forces. The sky, once filled with silver shapes, now returned to the calm blue of a clear morning. The battle was over. Leora stood on the hill, breathing heavily but smiling. Her dragons circled around her, their wings folded now, smoke curling from their nostrils. Ember perched on her shoulder, Thorn coiled protectively around her feet, and Caldera lowered his massive head in a gesture of loyalty. Humans from neighboring farms arrived, cheering quietly but proudly. Their dragons, griffins, and trained beasts had helped secure victory. The aliens had underestimated humans once again, and they had paid the price. Leora looked over the battlefield. The earth was scarred, trees were broken, and smoke drifted from the remains of alien drones, but the humans and dragons had survived. They had fought together, using courage, strategy, and adaptability that no alien technology could match. "This is only the beginning," Leora said softly, her voice carrying over the fields. "We've shown them what humans can do. But we must remain vigilant. They may return. But when they do, they will face humans united, dragons at our side, and a courage they cannot comprehend." The dragons roared in agreement, a sound of triumph, loyalty, and unity. Leora felt the bond between them stronger than ever. Together, they had defended their home, their families, and their world. Together, they were unstoppable. The alien ships disappeared over the horizon, retreating to parts unknown. Their reports would tell of humans who were clever, brave, and powerful in ways that technology could not predict. The galaxy would learn that humans, seemingly ordinary, were capable of extraordinary feats when united with their dragons. Leora descended from the hill, walking through the fields, checking on the humans and dragons. Some were injured, but none were defeated. They had learned from the battle, grown stronger, and proven their worth. She approached Caldera, resting his massive head on her shoulder. "We did it," she whispered. "We defended our home, and they will never forget it." Ember chirped, flapping her small wings, while Thorn nudged her hand gently. Together, they formed a circle of strength and trust. Leora looked out at the horizon, knowing that humans would continue to rise, continue to adapt, and continue to defend their world. The farm, once quiet and peaceful, had become a fortress, a symbol, and a testament to human ingenuity and courage. The battle had been fierce, the victory hard-won, but the message was clear. Humans, clever and brave, bonded with dragons, could face any threat. The wind carried a faint roar of dragons from nearby farms, as humans everywhere rallied their allies. The galaxy, Leora knew, had seen only a glimpse of what humanity was capable of, and they would remember this day forever. As the sun set, painting the sky with gold and purple, Leora stood on the hill, her staff glowing faintly, dragons circling around her. She smiled, proud and unafraid. The farm had been defended, humans had risen, and dragons had proven their loyalty and power. The aliens had been defeated, humanity had triumphed, and the universe had learned a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate humans. Leora turned to her dragons, her family, and allies. "Rest now," she said. "We've earned it. But one day, the stars may call us again. And when they do, we will be ready. Together." The dragons roared in agreement, their voices echoing across the hills and valleys. The farm was safe. Humanity had proven itself. And the future, bright and bold, awaited them all. The quiet farm had become a legend. And Leora, standing with dragons at her side, knew that humans, clever, brave, and united, could face any challenge, no matter how great. The story of this day would be remembered for generations, a tale of courage, unity, and the unstoppable spirit of humanity.